Womanjika, everyone, or welcome in Woiwurrung language to our Parks Victoria Wellbeing Benefits of Nature session. My name's Katrina Watson. I'm the Education Project Officer at Parks Victoria, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. To help us on our learning journey today, we'll be joined later by Parks Victoria's Communication Activation Officer, Nicola Shadbolt, and Ranger and Forest Therapist, Nita McIntrye. So it'll be great to have those experts join us a bit later. I would like to begin today's session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which I'm broadcasting from. For most of my life, I've lived and worked on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. I acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of the lands on which I currently stand. I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to extend my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us today. We have schools joining us from across the state, from Warrnambool to Ballarat to the Dandenongs. Welcome to you all, and I pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands on which you are watching from. We are so lucky to live, learn and play on the lands and the waters of the oldest living culture on Earth. Before we start today, I just wanted to point out a few housekeeping things. We have a Q&A section on the right-hand side of the screen. If you have any questions throughout the session today, you can type them into this section. We'll keep track of the questions and address any urgent ones straight away, and leave some of the other expert questions for later on when we'll have a Q&A session. If you're having any IT issues, you can see that Mel, another moderator who's here today, has popped the education email into the Q&A section. So you can email us at education@parks.vic.gov.au if you're having any issues. Just remember to include your phone number so we can call you back and assist you. We're recording the webinar and making it available for viewing afterwards online. Finally, everyone will need a piece of paper and a pencil, which I mentioned earlier, for one of our activities. So now would be a great time just to make sure you've got all that organised. Let's begin. Aboriginal people have lived, learnt and loved this land for over 60,000 years. Their connection to country is intertwined with their culture and their well-being. Recently, Michael, a cultural heritage advisor for the CFA, proposed this question to me that you can see on the screen. Are we a part of the environment or are we separate? As humans, is nature that is something that's over there that doesn't affect us, or is it something that we are connected to? Let's see what you think. We've got two pictures on the screen at the moment. We've got one, A, where it shows humans that are connected, and B, which shows humans separate, and in the centre there. I would like you to pop up your hands if you think A, we are connected and part of the environment. Teachers, if you could do a quick hand count, that would be great. And then hands down. Now hands up if you think B, that we are separate to the environment. Teachers, would you mind counting the hands for B, and then in the Q&A, pop what the majority of your students in your class or at your school chose. Was it A or B? Just in the Q&A section. And our moderators, Geordie and Mel, will make them shown on the screen there. The picture on the left shows that humans are included in the ecosystem. They're equal to other living things. Whereas the picture on the right is showing humans separate from nature and taking an egocentric stance. So thinking that they're more important almost than all the other living things around us. See if we can get some A's or B's in the Q&A chat. Got a few arriving. KPS, thanks for sending in yours. We've got an A. An anonymous, A. is Bailey's class? Majority A at Flowerdale. Lots of responses. Thank you for responding. As you can see in the chat box, many schools have selected A, that we are part of and connected to nature. We can recognise that we're connected to nature, that it offers us the food we eat, the air we breathe, but it also offers us so much more. This week, it's Nature Play Week. So to celebrate, we're going to explore the wellbeing benefits of nature. To help us figure out how our time outside is good for our mental health, we're going to start by thinking about our favourite place in nature. Mine is the beach walk between Point Lonsdale and Queenscliff. There is always something new to see, and it's a magical and quiet time to visit at sunrise or sunset. I like to walk, snorkel, take photos, and observe the tiny details, like this little crab that you can see on your screen. What I want you to do is pick up your pencil and paper and take a few minutes to draw your favourite place in nature. It could be a place you like to bike ride, or a park you like to play in, a spot you went camping with your family, any natural place that is important to you. You may wish to write a poem or a short story about it instead of drawing it, and that's okay. You'll have 3 minutes to start your drawing. You may not finish it in the 3 minutes, and that's okay too. I'll play some sounds of my favourite place in the background while you're drawing. But also whilst you're drawing, I want you to start thinking about how this place makes you feel when you're visiting it. So we're thinking about our mental health and how these places are connected and improve our mental health. So I would like you to pick up your pencil and paper, and I'm going to give you your 3 minutes. So I'll start the timer now, and you'll hear some ocean sounds in the background as well. Okay, time is up. I wish I could see some of your nature drawings. If you'd like, you can send your drawings after the webinar to education@parks.vic.gov.au. You may have some time at the end to finish them off as well. You may recall I asked you to think about how your favourite nature place makes you feel whilst you were drawing it. Pop your hands up if you have a word that comes to mind. Teachers, can you please head to the Poll Everywhere website? I'm going to place it on the screen for you now. There it is. It's polev.com, the website, and the code to enter is ParksVic280. Then you can select some students with their hands up and type in their words into the word cloud. Let's see how our favourite nature places make us all feel. The website and login code will be placed in the chat box for you as well. Interesting to see what you all think. Most importantly, how you all feel as well in these nature places. Give you a few moments to get the information down and then rejoin us. So no responses yet. We can see a few starting to arrive. With word clouds, the bigger the word, it means lots of people have selected these words. Unfortunately, limited to 5 words per group or classroom, but we can start to see that happy is definitely a prominent word and a prominent feeling when we're in our favourite place in nature. Calm, relaxed, peaceful, free. Some great feeling words there. Special, adventurous, serene. What a great describing word. Give you another few moments to pop in your words. Thrilled, I like that one. Being outside in nature can be exhilarating. Some great words there. Calm is really standing out amongst all those words. There's a bold word there. Thank you for that. Many of your nature place reflection words represent joyful and relaxing moments in our lives. Why is it that these natural places reinvigorate or calm us? Let's do a quiz to find out. Question 1. How much time do health professionals, such as doctors, recommend kids your age spend outside being active every day? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to have a little think in your heads about which answer you would choose. There's no need to respond this time. This is just something we'll do in our heads. So do you think it's A, 30 minutes, B, 60 minutes, or C, 120 minutes? How much time do you think we should be spending outside being active? All right, time's up. Health professionals recommend 60 minutes of outdoor play every day. I'm sure many of you wished it was 120 minutes. Luckily, here in Australia, 58% of school kids your age are getting more than an hour outside every day, which is great news. Being active outside helps us to build our muscles as well as our problem-solving skills. Both these skills are needed when navigating uneven paths, logs, rocks, and branches. It is good for our physical health, which in turn is good for our mental health as well. Question 2, hope you're ready. If students can see green spaces from their classroom, are their literacy and numeracy results higher or lower? So this is thinking about your English and math skills. Do you think A, they will be higher, B, lower, or C, no difference if you can see some natural green spaces from your classroom? You don't have to respond this time. You just have to do it in your head. All right, time's up. The answer is higher. Researchers have found that if we can see green space out our window when we're studying, it has a positive impact on not only our well-being, but also our learning. So it's got many benefits. Question 3. Why is time spent in nature good for our mental health? Is it A, it lowers our stress levels, B, helps us to concentrate, C, reduces levels of anxiety and depression, or D, all of the above? Give you a few minutes to have a think. Okay, time's up. It's D, all of the above. Scientists measure stress indicators such as blood pressure and the stress hormone cortisol to see what happens to people when they spend time in nature. A few studies have found that the stress indicators lower and concentration improves for someone after they spend time in nature. So it's great for our mental health. To help us understand the research being done around community health and nature, we have Nicola joining us today. Nicola works in the Community Programs Division of Parks Victoria. She focuses on healthy communities, events and activities. She helps people to access parks by coordinating the Guided Park Walk program. These walks are free, open to everyone, and are led by trained volunteers in many parks across Victoria. She also is involved in citizen science programs and health community events. Thank you for joining us, Nicola. Can you tell us what are some of the other benefits of being active outside in nature?
Yeah, there are so many amazing benefits of spending time in nature. As mentioned earlier, it can affect our mood, so it can make us feel more relaxed and more happy. It can also affect our sleep, so it can actually help us sleep better. It's really great at strengthening our immune system, as well as strengthening our bones and our muscles. It's also really great for our vision. So if you spend a lot of time looking at screens, for example, spending some time in the great outdoors is great for strengthening your long distance eyesight. It also gives us a great opportunity to connect with our family and friends and build up our strong relationships with the people we care about.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nita. Thanks for sharing your expertise today. If you'd like to find out more, thanks, Nicola. If you'd like to find out more about how we can spend time outside, and especially with your family on the weekend or something like that, you can head to the Healthy Parks, Healthy People webpage on the Parks Victoria website. Don't forget, if you have any questions for Nicola, you can pop them in the Q&A box and we'll ask our experts towards the end of the session. So keep thinking of all those amazing questions. So to help us de-stress, sometimes we just have to step outside into nature and get some fresh air. But we can also pair our time in nature with mindfulness techniques to help us feel more centered and relaxed. Being mindful is the idea of learning how to be fully present and engaged in the moment, aware of your thoughts and feelings without distraction or judgment. Tuning into your senses, what you see, hear, feel and smell, can help you develop your mindfulness practice. We are very fortunate to have another Parks Victoria expert joining us today, Nita McIntrye. Nita works as a ranger in parks located north of Melbourne. She takes great pride in maintaining the parks for others to enjoy. She's also a trained forest therapist. She's here today to talk about how she practices mindfulness in nature through a technique called forest bathing or forest therapy. Welcome, Nita.
Hi, everyone. As I said before, I'm a ranger at Yarra Bend in Greswell Forest, and I've made a little video for you at one of my favourite places in nature, Greswell Forest, and I hope you enjoy it. So if you have any questions or you're curious about anything, please feel free to ask me any questions.
Thanks, Nita. We'll play this video now. If there's any video issues, just let us know in the Q&A chat, and we'll provide a link to the video for you to watch separately.
So besides being a ranger, there's another thing that I like to do, which is forest bathing. It's also called forest therapy or Shinrin-yoku, which is the Japanese, where it comes from in Japan, that's what it's called, and it translates as bathing your senses in the forest. And there's good reason why we've decided why we do this, and it's because it makes us feel better. Like I said before, I nearly always come away from Greswell Forest feeling better. Well, you might have that feeling when when you're sitting inside in classroom and you just everything just feels a little bit too much and all that. And as soon as you step outside for recess, you can just feel yourself feeling a bit better. We all know this, but there's a lot of things that are happening that scientists have worked out what's happening to our bodies when we step outside and go into a natural space. And that's what forest bathing and Shinrin-yoku is based on. Things like cortisol levels or blood pressure, they all go up when you're stressed out. But as soon as you go into nature, these things come down. So while our stress indicators are all going down, we've got a lot of things that are going up at the same time. So that would mean things like our immune function in our body. So that's the things that are happening in our body to fight off illnesses, infections and viruses. Those things go up when you're in a natural environment. So that's really what forest bathing is based on. So the idea is that we are slowing down and bathing all of our senses in the natural environment in a way where we come away feeling better. The aim of it is to really build up a relationship with nature. So to do that, you really have to slow, like with your friends, you have to think about them and you have to take their feelings into consideration. Well, it's the same with nature. So building up a relationship with nature, you stop and you take the time to slow down and observe what's happening around you and how nature is responding to things. Just simply enjoying it and appreciating it, the colours and the textures and the smells and you know what, I think actually, kids are kind of naturals at this, to be honest. Us adults have to work at it a bit harder. But from what I've learned working with kids and just being with my own kids is, kids do this naturally, and you should just enjoy it. If we build up a really nice relationship with nature and we get to notice things about it, there's been a lot of research that suggests that this really improves the biodiversity of the environment around you. Because basically, the more time we spend in nature and enjoy it and recognise that we enjoy it, the more time we want to spend in nature, and the more that we notice things in it, and the more we are motivated to try and save it. My number one thing is to take home is that nature's not separate from us. So we are nature. We're a part of nature. So when we have healthy parks and we have a healthy environment, we have healthy people. The two aren't separate. We can't take ourselves out of the environment too much. We're part of it. So it's not just that we do better in nature, we are nature. Yeah.
Thanks, Nita. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm about nature mindfulness and forest bathing and how it can help us distress. You've also created a wonderful forest bathing activity for our students to do in their schoolyards or backyards or local green space. Can you tell us why you wanted to create this activity, Nita?
Yeah, I really wanted to create a forest bathing or forest therapy activity that kids could enjoy and adults could enjoy too. They could do together. And as I was saying before in the video, it's about what we're trying to do is connect our senses to nature, so connecting to nature through our senses. And so that one of our senses, one of our strong senses is smell. It's connected to a lot of things in memory, and so it's a really, as we connect to nature through smell, it opens up a lot of other things too. It's a nice way to slow down also and collect all the little pieces that you're going to put into your nature perfume. So yeah, hope you enjoy having a go at it at some stage.
So besides being...
Thanks, Nita. I'll play that video now. Sorry, a few technical issues there.
So I thought I would share an activity with you that forest bathing activity that I like to do when I'm at Greswell Forest. I call it Greswell perfume, but it's something you can do anywhere outside. You can do it in your backyard, you can do it at a local park, if you've got a nice, any outdoor area really, where there's some plants around. Before we start any forest bathing or forest therapy activity, we usually go through a whole sequence of, slowing down and making sure that we, close our eyes and take some deep breaths, and maybe activate our sense of touch by, rubbing our hands together. We'll go through to the perfume activity, which is thinking about our sense of smell. And it's also just so that, we come up with the perfume at the end of it, but the idea is also that we just enjoy the process as well. And so that would mean, so basically we start off with a cup. You can have a plastic cup or any kind of cup that you like, and you just wander around and pick up things that you find interesting off the bush floor or the forest floor. This is the plants and the animals' home at Greswell Forest. So I'm a guest here, and I'll just take things that are on the bush floor. So things that have already fallen off plants, and I'm not disrupting it too much. So because all of this is habitat basically. So I try not to pull things off trees or anything that's living. So of all the things I've collected, I put them all in my little tin cup here and pop them all in. And even then, when you scrunch them all in there, oh, I lost one down here. You can smell it like that. But to even bring it out even more, if you find a stick around you or something like that, give it a good mash. So you're mashing up all of the, as much as you can, mashing up all the oils and in the leaves, and that releases a whole different smell. So you put all of those collected things and you try to blend them all up a little bit, mashing it around, and then you smell it again. And yeah, that's definitely got a stronger smell to it. So you're activating your sense of smell and smelling things that you might not have smelt before or paid attention to. But yeah, it's a really nice way to get your sense of smell working. And it's also a nice way just to explore the bush.
Thank you, Nita. I can't wait to make my own nature perfume. Hopefully those videos came through to you guys okay. Geordie has placed the link to the videos if you want to watch them again or want to watch them a little bit later because you had issues. Don't forget, if you have any questions for Nita, you can pop them in the Q&A box and we'll ask our experts towards the end of the session. So Nita has some wonderful ideas about forest therapy and forest bathing and how that can help with our nature mindfulness. There are also some other great activities that you can do outside in nature to help you connect to nature and be more mindful. You may wish to create a sound map, which is simply going outside and drawing a bird's eye view of your nature space in grey lead pencil, and then sitting for 5 to 10 minutes and drawing all the sounds that you hear in their approximate locations using a different coloured pencil. So you can see the example on the screen of one of my students doing a sound map. You might note how you feel before, during and after you create your map and see if there is a difference. If your nature feeling words that we did before, if you feel those feelings coming back to you again whilst doing the nature sound map. Another activity you could do is the Nature Colour Wheel Bingo activity. This is a mindful activity in which you need to search for the colours of the rainbow using your nature colour wheel. You simply print off the nature colour wheel and gather some pegs or paper clips and then head outside and place the pegs on the colours that you find. I wonder if you'll notice colours that you hadn't noticed before. Finally, you may choose to do a sit spot to practice mindfulness in nature. A sit spot is a green space that you go to regularly to connect inwardly to yourself and outwardly to nature. You can come back to your sit spot at different times of the year and notice the changes. Supporting documents for these activities will be sent to teachers after the webinar. So you might like to do some of these things straight after this session. Teachers, we also have a whole program on wellbeing and how people of all backgrounds and abilities connect to nature. This Park Explorers program is for years 3 to 6 students and has strong links with the geography and health and physical education curriculum. If you're interested in learning more about the program, you can download the teaching and learning resources off the Park Explorers website, which we'll place in the chat for you. We now have time for questions. If you have any questions for Nita and Nicola, then you can pop it into the Q&A section on the right. Thanks to all those teachers and students who've already posted a few questions there. Let's see what you're wondering. So I've got some wonderful questions here. Looks like we might have one for Nicola from Riley. Nicola, how can being outside help with your long distance eyesight? Do you have any insight into this question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Riley. Great question. So our eyes have 2 different types of strengths. They've got their short distance vision, which is what you use when you're reading, and it's you've also got your long distance vision, which is when you're looking really far away. And we've got to strengthen the muscles for both those types of visions. So when you're outside and you're looking at the trees and the birds, maybe you're riding your bike and looking far away down the path, all of that type of thing strengthens those long distance vision muscles. So that's why spending time in nature is a really good idea to get your eyesight nice and strong.
Thanks, Nicola. We've got a few more questions for you, so I might stay with you, Nicola, if that's okay, and we'll head over to Nita in a minute. Nicola, how did scientists work out nature is good for you? That's from Morgan.
Oh, Morgan, great one. So scientists figured it out through experiments. So there's lots of experiments going on and they've happened for a long time. And scientists would do things like, for example, we were talking about blood pressure and how it's lowered when you spend time in nature. So they would get lots and lots of people and they would check their blood pressure before they spend time in nature and then afterwards. And they check whether there's been a difference. So that's the kind of way that they find out what the effects of nature are.
Thanks, Nicola. I think we might have one more for you and then
Sure.
We'll pop over to Nita and maybe come back. We'll see what other questions come in. Lily wants to know, why is it good for us to go outside?
Oh, Lily, so many reasons. It's so great for our mental health. So it can make us feel better. It helps our emotions. It makes us feel calmer. It affects our concentration. So it helps us concentrate once we're back in the classroom. It helps us physically, so it helps us get nice and strong. Being active in nature is really good for our health. And it's also about social, so it's a really nice way to connect with your friends and your family. So things like playing or going for a bike ride, canoeing, going on a picnic, all those things have amazing effects on your mental, your physical, and your social health and well-being.
Thank you so much, Nicola. That's great.
No worries.
Nita, I think I have a few questions for you now. We might go back to Nicola shortly, but Nita, from Jack, we have, what is it like being a park ranger?
Hi, Jack. I've got to say, it's great. I love it. It's it's a wonderful job because I get to be in nature and I get to be outside a lot. So a lot of people have told me I used to want to be a ranger when I was a kid. It seems to be one of those things, and you know, it's a really great thing to do, and you get exposed to lots of different things and lots of different areas, and it keeps you problem solving and keeps you happy as well. It's great.
Thanks, Nita. I love your enthusiasm. We've got a few questions about trees here, so I might pull them together. So Leah wants to know what's the most common tree, and Lockie wants to know how long do trees grow for. So Nita, would you be able to give us a little bit of insight about some common trees that you have on the parks that you look after?
I think our most common tree in Australia would be our river red gums, our beautiful, majestic river red gums. So the Eucalyptus commendalensis. So they're pretty much all over Australia. There's just a few patches where they don't. Anywhere where there's water, you'll generally find river red gums. There's just a few parts in WA and I think Tasmania where we don't have them. So you might have noticed them before. They grow in lots of different almost curly patterns when they're really mature. So they can live, right up to 800. We've got some 800-year-old trees in Victoria. They live for a really long time, and even when when they die, they live on for a little while in terms of they're still passing nutrients onto the living trees that are around them. So they're just amazing structures and beings, in our environment.
Thanks, Nita. I think Ballarat Grammar had a very similar question too, so hopefully that answered their question. But I've got one from Nidri Primary School for you, Nita. How does taking a walk in nature reduce your stress levels?
I think Nicola was talking before about there's some really simple measures of stress, and that's blood pressure and cortisol. They're two simple ways to measure stress levels in our body. And so there's been, in particular, where forest bathing came out of in Japan, it's really big over there. So they have like a quarter of the population doing forest bathing regularly. And they've done almost like a really wide scale research. So basically anyone who enters into forest bathing zones, as they have to be certified as forest bathing zones, their blood pressure is taken, and a lot of the times they don't always do it. They usually take, they can take blood tests as well, which measure the cortisol levels. So as Nicola said, they will measure that before the walk, and then they'll measure it after the walk. And it very, very clearly shows that these stress indicators are going down after the walk. So it's really fascinating, but it's I think most of us feel it and we kind of know it instinctually. I do. I know I feel better when I come out of a bushwalk or out of a natural space. So, but it's really great to also have, things that we know instinctually, and maybe we just don't even think about that much because we know it. It's nice to have that presented to us in a scientific way as well, because then it makes it stronger.
Yeah, good point that, we're stronger together, both us and nature, working together. This sort of connects this with what you were just saying there, this question from Nidri Primary School again. What would happen if there isn't enough nature for us to connect with? What do you think, Nita?
Oh, what a good question. I often think about that because, you know, I live in the city, and but being part of nature and being in nature is really important to me. And so I often think about, well, you know, if we're going to protect our green spaces, as you know, are my kids going to have enough green space when they're older? And I think, because we all know how important it is. So yeah, I think, you know what, I don't think it's going to happen. I think humans are really good at protecting what's important to them. And I think more and more we're starting to recognize how important, you know, being part of nature and our natural world is. It's just integral to us. We're part of it. So, you know, I think but if we didn't have it, I would say we wouldn't be as happy, and we wouldn't be as healthy. And you know, as we're working out, you know, nature makes us feel good. It just does. And I think when we feel good, we do good things, and we make good choices, and we have good interactions with people. So, you know, if we didn't have that, maybe we wouldn't be having such, you know, we wouldn't feel as healthy, and we wouldn't have as much as healthy communities that come out of that as well. So, but I'm really hopeful that we all recognise how good we feel in nature, and that, you know, we can make sure that we have enough green spaces and natural environments around us to help us, you know, feel good.
Thank you, Nita. We've got a few more questions here for you as well. We've got Shanae over at Warrnambool East there, who wants to know how often Nita would do forest bathing.
Well, not as much as I'd like. I'd like to do it every day, I think. So I used to do it every week as part of my program, but this year, and during COVID restrictions, when everyone was, you know, stuck inside a lot more in Melbourne, at least, I didn't do it as much. I didn't do I don't do it as regularly now, but I do elements of it. So it's like anything, once you learn a new skill, you might not have to practice it as often, but you work it into your everyday life. So, you know, and as I'm working as a ranger now, I use elements of it. So I use little parts of it in my everyday. So even if I'm, you know, just working outside, I try to take the time. I was doing a working bee yesterday, and I took a bit of time to look around me and notice the trees that were around me, and take a bit of time to appreciate that. So yeah, I worked it into my life. And we're talking about the sit spot before. That's one of my favourite things. And when I first started doing forest bathing, I did a sit spot in my backyard, and I did it every day for 20 minutes. And I got so much out of it. And I don't do it as much now, but I still like to take the time to, you know, go to my sit spot and see what's happening in nature. And you know, I did forest therapy training with people who lived in Hong Kong, and so their sit spot was sitting in their balcony in the city where they could only see one tree. And so it was a lot different from my sit spot in Melbourne, but they became very attached. Speaking to them, they became very attached to the tree that they could see, and they became really tuned into the tree, exactly what was happening to the tree and how it changed in the seasons. And so I think we can all work it into our everyday life, no matter where you live.
That's a really good point, Nita. I went for a lovely walk this morning, so it wasn't sort of sitting, but it was definitely a lovely walk along the creek, just to help me feel a bit more relaxed. Got lots of questions coming in. We'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. I think we'll do this question for both of you. So Nita first, and then Nicola. Nita, what's your favourite thing about nature?
Oh, that's another great question, and it's really hard to answer. I'm trying to think. There's so many things I love about nature, but I got to say, it's the feeling that I get being in nature, because I think and also it's what I've learned out of nature. So, you know, the more time that I've spent, like I was talking about Greswell Forest before as my favourite place in nature. And, you know, I've travelled all around the world, and I've seen some really amazing natural places. But, you know, this little park, which is just outside of just in Melbourne off the tram line, it's still one of my favourite places because I've got the strongest connection to it. And I've learned so much about plants and about animals and myself there. So yeah, I think being in, just the feeling that I get being in nature makes me feel good, makes me feel part of the world.
Wonderful. And Nicola, what's your favourite thing about nature?
Oh, I would have to agree with Nita. It's how it makes me feel. It makes me feel so much more calm and relaxed when I've spent time in nature. And it's also realizing how amazing nature is and how much it changes every day. So you can go to the same spot or look at the same tree every day and something's different about it. You might see a new bird nesting in it one day, and then you might see the babies be born. There's something that's changing every time. So even places I go frequently, there's always something new to look at and something beautiful and exciting to see. So that's why, yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see those changes happening over time. I might have another question here for you, Nicola. How does nature help you to focus?
I think it's having that time away from busy spaces. So when I'm in a busy office or I'm spending a lot of time with other people or I'm looking at my computer a lot and reading lots of emails, my brain goes busy, 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 and I'm thinking a lot. So when I go out in nature and just go for a walk and I do things like Nita was explaining of with forest bathing, being really mindful of what's around me, it helps my mind calm down and just take a step back from everything. And then I can come in and I feel way more focused. So that's how it helps me.
Thanks, Nicola. That's great. We might have one more question here for you as well. Violet from Panton Hill would like to know what happens when people live in the city where there is less natural spaces. So what do you think might happen? We heard from Nita before with her colleagues in Hong Kong who are also learning about forest therapy, and they you know, made that connection by looking for one tree that they could sit and watch. What do you think happens to people when they live in the city and where there's less nature?
Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting studies actually about people who have less exposure to nature versus more exposure. And obviously in the cities there is less nature, but at the same time it doesn't take much. So it can be just that one tree that gives that connection to nature. So as much as yes, there's less nature and it can affect your health and well-being, finding and seeking out and being mindfully looking for that nature can also be what you need to help encourage that health and well-being through a connection with nature. So there's a lot of interesting studies out there you might be interested in.
It's great to hear people doing lots of research into this area so we can understand how best to improve our mental health using some time in nature. One more question for you, Nicola. How does nature influence our behaviour? So can you give us any insights into any correlations between time in nature and behaviour? That was from Barath at Alamanda College.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. So as we talked about, there's a lot of research into how it affects our behaviour in terms of our ability to focus and our concentration. And it's also affects our behaviour in terms of our moods. So nature makes us feel more calm and it feels more happy. So it's been demonstrated that it tends to help us in many different ways with our behaviour, but people have more self-control. They might take a moment to step back, so there's not as much anger or stress. So it's interesting to see how these different things that might affect us physically also affect our moods and behaviours as well.
Thanks, Nicola. Nita, I might go back to you now for our last few questions. Serafina from Trentham District Primary has the question, does the effect of forest bathing change with different seasons?
Oh, what a great question, Serafina. I've never been asked that before. And that's so interesting because I have I have done forest bathing when it's really hot, and I've done it in the middle of winter as well. And yeah, I think it's more how it's maybe not the effects afterwards, but it's more how people feel before they come into doing the forest bathing. So often in winter, we're a little bit more introspective, or not as feeling, you know, you're not as social, you're not seeing as many people, and you don't have as many kind of outdoor gatherings. So people are a little bit more reflective when they come in to do the forest bathing. And yeah, and I really enjoy that. I love doing forest bathing in winter. I just love bushwalking in winter as well. I think it's a lovely time to do it. But yeah, I haven't noticed, to be honest, any difference so much afterwards, but it's more how people are feeling before they, you know, as they come to do the forest bathing. Great question though.
It is a wonderful question, and maybe Trentham District might be able to research that one a little bit more. And we love these questions that challenge our thinking as well. There's this one from Maddie from SNPS Primary. Why do you think humans hurt nature? So Nita, it's a big question, but maybe you have some thoughts on why humans maybe don't make the best choices towards nature sometimes.
Yeah, it is a big question, and there's probably a lot of different reasons. But I think sometimes it comes from not having a good relationship with nature. So if we are too separate from nature, we don't think of it as connected to us or as an extension to us. So, you know, traditionally, humans had a much stronger relationship with nature. Doesn't matter where you come from in the world. All of our ancestors had a much stronger connection to relationship because they relied on it for everything, and they were connected to it. They knew what time the sun rose and set every day. So as our societies get bigger and bigger, and you know, we have a lot more technology, I think we become more separate from it. And so it makes it easier to do things to nature. And some people aren't even aware that they're hurting nature when they're doing it because they're not seeing the effects of it. So yeah, I think it comes from ignorance, I guess, of how you know, how connected to nature we are, how we are a part of nature. And yeah. Good
Great
question.
point, Nita, that we have to sort of remember that we're an integral part of nature, and that connection is important for nature and for us as well. Charlie's got the flip-sided question. Charlie would like to know, what part of nature do humans help with? So what's the positive impacts we're having on nature? Nita, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, well, you know, I guess there's, you know, when you look at all the volunteers that come through Parks Victoria, I work with volunteers every day who are just, you know, passionate about their green spaces and about the environment in general, but about, in particular, they've got to know an area really well, and they spend a lot of time thinking about it and how they can improve it. And so many places in Australia, you know, sadly, a lot of the native vegetation, the Indigenous vegetation, has been taken out of there, and something else has been put in its place. And so there's so much work going on to re-establish what it should really look like, and what helps, you know, the animals, and you know, live in that land as well, and us live there too. So there's so much revegetation work being done in that sense. And you know, I think even just yeah, like even just getting to know nature as well. So getting to know that you know, that's part of forest bathing as well, as building up that, just observing nature and being there. I think that's really important work too. I think it's the first step to yeah, keep improving the nature around you, is just to get to know it and notice what time things are flowering, and what times, you know, things that what happens to the plants around you at different times of the year. If you know, like if you probably learnt a little bit about the, Indigenous seasons, the Wurundjeri seasons in Melbourne, that is. And, you know, that's, I was talking to Uncle Dave, one of the Wurundjeri elders, and it's, you know, all of that, it just comes out of, you know, it's really detailed knowledge that they have of they've developed over time of observing what is happening in nature. So, you know, one season doesn't end and one season doesn't start on a particular date. There are dates, you know, on a calendar, but it doesn't actually start until there's a whole sequence of events in nature that has happened. So, you know, this flowers, a migratory bird will come, and there's a whole kind of sequence, and then it kicks into the next season. And so that's from really, you know, you only get that knowledge through observation. And, you know, so if we take the time to observe, I think that's a really important starting point.
Excellent point, yeah, to make there, Nita. So I think our lives get so busy and we're always going here, there and everywhere that it's a great point to stop, look and listen and just really reconnect with what's happening around you. We might end with one last question, and I'll pose it to both Nita and Nicola. So maybe Nita first. What's the main idea that you think students should take away from this webinar?
I would say the main idea is just to remember that we are not separate from nature, we're part of nature, and just to enjoy it. Like, don't put pressure on yourself that you have to learn a certain thing when you're in nature or do a certain thing. Just remember to enjoy it. And there's so many different ways to enjoy nature. Some people prefer, you know, more active things, bushwalking or whatever, but, you know, you might just enjoy sitting down and watching the clouds, and that's great too. So, yeah.
Thanks, Nita. I love that perspective of just being quiet and watching the clouds. It's brilliant. Nicola, what do you think students should take away from this webinar?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Nita. I think find something that you love doing outdoors and just use that to spend time there. So it might be, yeah, it might be bike riding or canoeing, or it could be just going with your friends to the park and having a picnic, or, as Nita said, watching the clouds. But you can keep in mind when you're doing that, spending that time in nature is helping your health and well-being. So you're looking after yourself whilst you're spending time in nature.
Great reminder, Nicola, that our well-being is being improved by just being outside and having some fresh air. This concludes today's webinar. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll make the recording available from today's session to you in the coming weeks. If you happen to think of any further questions for our team, I know we didn't get to go through all of them, or you wish to share your drawings with us as well, you can email us at education@parks.vic.gov.au. We'd love to hear any more questions you might have or to see those drawings. Maybe now would be a good time to go outside and make your own nature perfume like Nita taught us, or you could do one of the other mindfulness activities. But thank you again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy celebrating the remainder of Nature Play Week. Thanks. Bye.